is any one fixed way to extract revenue out of customers.
Right.
I don't think anyone has discovered that yet, other than building a great product, which means that you identify a real problem. Take Swiggy, Zomato, take Uber, take maybe even Cred.
Right.
There are all the apps. The simplest thing is for you and for me and for anybody watching this or listening this, any app that you love to use for a specific problem or specific need. It's already in the first category because it's got such a clear correlation. I have this problem, I'll open this app.
Okay. And what about the people in the other category?
Isn't that like the majority of...
Of course.
Yeah. And I look at these people, in a very empathetic manner. These are people who are actually trying to do a great job, right?
Hey everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Upshot.ai podcast. Today we have with us Krishna Chaitanya, or Casey as we like to call him. With over a decade of experience in handling customers and solving their problems, Casey knows the ins and outs of user engagement. His hands-on approach and deep understanding of what works and what doesn't makes him just the right person to discuss this topic today. So Casey, let's start with understanding what kind of professionals do you generally interact with?
So Kaustuv, as part of customer success in Upshot, I work with product managers and marketers who are usually handling mobile apps and sometimes websites.
Okay, so Casey, I'm really interested in your perspective on when do you think these folks feel the need for a user engagement tool?
See, they actually realize at different points in time, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, for sake of simplicity, let's first talk about the idea of like the core value prop of what that app actually offers, right? So because we know that every app out there is ultimately meant for satisfying some sort of a value proposition.
Of course, yeah.
So if we just talk about that for a minute, because there is such a wide variety of skill and awareness in all these professionals, what I've seen is broadly I can sort of split them into two categories, right? The first group of people are those who are like really serious about the core value prop, right? They understand who they are helping.
Okay.
They have a really good idea of the target personas. They know what problem they are solving. They craft a very compelling solution and they basically ensure like a really great user experience, right? So these are like the four broad components of core value prop. So the first group of people that I've seen are those who take this very seriously.
Okay,
they work really hard at it. And then when the time at which they realize they need a user engagement tool is to do everything else, to put it simply, right? For example, they don't want to like write code for sending notifications, or they don't want to write code for doing something extra, something dynamic on top of the core value that they've already built, right?
Okay.
So that's when they come to a user engagement tool. That's when they feel like, okay, let's look for something in the market which can help us do those 1, 2, 3 extra things.
Okay.
And then the other group of people are those who, for various reasons, they somehow the core value prop doesn't exactly come out really strongly.
Okay.
So they feel the need for user engagement in a little different manner, so to speak.
Okay. And what are the expectations of these two groups of people from these user engagement tools? So, if you would explain that.
Yeah, certainly. And as I said, it's as a continuation to my previous answer. The first group of people are those who really believe in the core value prop and work on it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So their expectation actually reflects an understanding of user engagement. What I mean by that is they know that the core value prop is itself a very big driver of user engagement. Right? For example, when we want to hire a cab, we just go to Uber.
Right.
So we are essentially engaging with the Uber app.
Okay.
When we have a problem to be solved. Same with Swiggy, etc. All the great apps fall into this category, right?
Okay.
So their expectation from the user engagement tools is, I have done the bulk of the work. there are 1, 2, 3 specific tasks that I want you to do. Just allow me the flexibility and the freedom to do those things. That's their expectation.
Okay.
For example, I want to send a notification to a certain group of people. Can I do that? I want to toss in an image in the notifications. Can I do that? I want to take their feedback. Can I do that? These are very specific asks, you see. Right? These are very specific and constrained asks. So that's what they expect from a tool.
Okay.
Now the second group, because their awareness of what a core value prop is or how to actually go about it, maybe it's not 100%. So their expectation from the tool is, can the tool weave some magic? Can the tool deliver a punch and sort of compensate for what maybe is a little bit lacking on the core value prop?
Okay.
So you can see like the really two different expectations.
Right.
A nice way to think about this is that the first group of people really believe in the pull philosophy.
Okay.
They believe like if they build something awesome, people will come and they will use, and engagement is going to happen naturally. So if they look at an engagement tool, they look at it from a very limited task-oriented perspective. Plus, sometimes, they also, when they look at what the tool offers, sometimes something goes in their head and they say, okay, can I do something extra? Can I just engage people even, apart from the whatever I've built for them in the app, right?
Okay.
Whereas the second people exactly contrast, right? They believe more in the push philosophy.
Okay.
That's just their tendency or their leanings, or right, or their situation makes them sort of go towards more of a push philosophy. They believe in nudging users, sort of pushing them to consider some XYZ in the app. Right? So that's a good way to think about these two categories, like pull and push.
Okay. So people in the first group, I think, must be fewer in number, right?
So, of course, like how many great apps do you know? Do you know 100 of them, 1,000 of them?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
No.
it's so that's a very fair remark to make. They are fewer in number. What we really want as builders of these tools is that more and more people actually go into that category.
Okay.
Because it makes apps better, it makes the digital space really superior.
Okay. So could you name a few from this first category?
Yeah, for example, if we are all in India, we know like several awesome apps. Take Swiggy, Zomato, take Uber, take maybe even Cred.
Right.
There are all the apps. The simplest thing is, for you and for me and for anybody watching this or listening this, any app that you love to use for a specific problem or specific need, it's already in the first category because it's got such a clear correlation. I have this problem, I'll open this app.
Okay. And what about the people in the other category?
Isn't that like the majority of...
Of course.
Yeah. And I look at these people, in a very empathetic manner. These are people who are actually trying to do a great job, right? There are various limitations. Sometimes I know really talented people in this category who, because of some constraints in the company, let's say because of resource limitations, because of some market pressures, deadlines, they put something out which they are not exactly proud of, right? They know it. And then, of course, there are also those people who are somehow blindsided, right? They don't even know that what they are putting out is not really up to the mark. And they have their own learnings.
Okay.
Ultimately, these people are on a learning curve, right? Either they realize it consciously or they receive like really strong feedback from the market and then they sort of learn, right?
Okay, so let's talk more about this category.
Yeah, absolutely. Like again, like I've had the good fortune to work with like many bright people in this. See, I don't want to like explicitly categorize them, but we need to for the purpose of a discussion, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing permanent about this. It's just where they are today, right? So I've seen again like two groups of people, right? Those they have something in the back of the mind which is telling them something is missing. Okay, they can't exactly put their finger on it.
Okay.
But they feel like, why is my engagement off? Right? When they look at analytics, they feel like something is not going right. And they become a little bit self-aware when they realize that they are feeling the need to do more of notifications, more of nudging.
Okay.
It sort of makes them ask themselves, like, why am I doing this? So they have a little more reflective, maybe personality, or they've just practiced it, right? And these are the people who will eventually understand, okay, it's all about the core value prop. I need to really go do something there. I need to fix it. And then the second category of people are, basically those who feel maybe they haven't exactly received feedback from the market.
Okay.
Maybe feedback is pending, or maybe the way they have been measuring engagement is sort of feeding into some sort of a confirmation bias at times. So either it's like a lack of awareness, or maybe it's a little bit of trying to kind of feel that they are getting it right while like ignoring some evidence that could be contrary. So this is like the broad sort of folks that are in the second group of people.
Could you also share a couple of case studies or stories of apps that improve the user engagement by creatively using a user engagement tool?
Yes, I actually could. So because as part of customer success, I've had the good fortune of actually working with certain clients on both like projects which are not so deep,
Okay.
and plus projects which are like fairly deep, right? So one example that comes to my mind is a large, surface transportation company from the US. So I did this really exhaustive consulting project with them where they basically realized that the end users of that application are actually truck owners and truck drivers, right? They're broadly called as carriers,
Okay.
in the United States.
Yeah.
So it was an app meant for carriers, and many great things about that app, many good features. But they realized engagement is slightly on the downward trend, right? So when we worked with them, we were luckily given the freedom to probe and explore areas that define and influence user engagement, right? So we were given that freedom.
Okay.
So as part of that project, we worked on really going to the table, drawing board, and again like doing the whole core value prop exercise.
Okay.
And I was really impressed with the management because they had the courage to acknowledge that they should tinker with the core value prop and take it to a next level, right? So we spent about 3 months. Can you believe that? Like going back and forth, and finally they fixed it.
Okay.
So that actually elevated the user engagement right out of the bat.
Okay.
So that's one story, and I draw a lot of inspiration from such companies,
Okay.
right, with that mindset, right?
Right.
The second story or case study that I have is a sports company from the United States.
Okay.
Again, actually, they use Upshot. And now the core value prop was awesome. Okay, it was already like really well done, and it was driving its own reasonable level of engagement just on its own. So in our earlier terminology, there was a good pull effect already, right? So the question that when we worked with them, the question they asked is, can we increase the pull? Can we do something which can just take this one notch above?
Okay.
Now, the work in the core value prop was done, right? So we only had to explore extra things. For example, could you do something that's related to the app and the theme and the topic, but which is not directly like it doesn't feel like marketing.
Okay.
Right? So we have to take like a sort of a non-marketing but still very much engaging type of a tack we had to take. That's what we identified collaboratively, right? So after a lot of discussions, what we realized is that there is one trend we see in the world, which is that many apps tend to capitalize on some real world event and leverage it for the purpose of engagement and marketing, right? A good example comes to mind is like Swiggy
Zomato.
recently started the cricket cards.
Correct.
You have to complete a collection and so on. Like Zomato has ZPL.
Yeah.
A lot of these things, this is a fairly common trend.
Right.
So we took inspiration from this trend, but the client challenged us to make sure that it's not really around one particular real world event, because guess what, that event is over.
Right.
Sooner or later it gets over, and then you don't have relevance anymore, right? So we took a leaf out of that book, but instead we decided, okay, how can we make this an ongoing thing, independent of like the seasonal ups and downs of so we decided maybe it's a good idea to start something once a week, give people something fun to do, which is again related to the theme of the app. Like, it can't just be something disconnected, right? And keep that going. So it's the same day of the week, the same time. Every time it's a different fun activity being given to the users.
Okay.
And we saw that by carefully designing those activities, the users not only experienced regular ongoing engagement every week, irrespective of whether they purchased anything or not, right? So this is a great example, because we could create a layer of engagement that is not related to purchase, which is not pressurizing people to purchase,
Right.
but which sort of slips under the radar because it ultimately is about the app's theme. Right?
Correct.
So engaging there actually pushes the knowledge of the users forward. They get to know more about the kind of players they like, and they discover new players, and etc. etc. So what does that translate into? The short term is you get a nice boost in engagement, right, which is completely free of purchase pressures. Second is it gives them ideas to check out products that are available related to these players, right?
Okay.
So it actually does drive purchases, but in a sort of a very roundabout, very subtle manner. And this was a great example because this comes from that first kind of like pull sort of a philosophy.
Correct.
How
That's
can
what I was about to say. A lot of companies are actually trying to do this.
yes,
Yeah, to
Yes.
keep it as organic as possible.
yeah. In fact, all the conversations that we have with many prospective customers nowadays, is majority of the customers are like, we have a good app, we have good organic engagement already. There is a reasonable pull
Correct.
already. How can you help us to take it to the next level? And I love those questions because it opens up such a creative array of options.
Right.
And especially platforms like Upshot, we are here exactly for that kind of a crowd.
Correct.
Right? Who want to look to do something different, who want to look to break out of the usual, the hygiene of let's do notifications or let's send emails. I mean, that's great, but I think today it has entered the category of hygiene, right?
Right.
So we love to work with people, those who are aiming for a little bit of extra. Some spice, in India we say tadka.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So that's really.
Any examples, again, coming back to the same thing, any other examples that comes to your mind?
Do you have a specific area in mind?
So a great app coming to you for an ask how to drive my revenue further.
So we generally, I'll answer that question in two parts.
Okay.
We generally, something that we have learned along the way is not to get into revenue discussions.
Okay.
Because, the conversation we've been having so far, it's about a tool.
Okay.
Right?
But I'm sure revenue is a part of the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I am also equally respectful of, there are direct ways of getting revenue, and then there are indirect and subtle ways of influencing revenue.
Right.
So that actually respecting that boundary helps you to be clear how you are going to use a tool, right? So I represent Upshot.ai. Now, if a prospect comes to me and says, Casey, how do we drive revenue using your platform? I will answer that question by asking another question. What do you think? Let me tell you what the tool's capabilities are.
Yeah.
Do you find a creative way to use this to drive revenue? And let's not forget that there are many things that you can do indirectly which influence revenue, because ultimately you also want that people should stick with you for a while, right? I don't think there is any one fixed way to extract revenue out of customers.
Right.
I don't think anyone has discovered that yet, other than building a great product, which means that you identify a real problem. You have very clear understanding of the persona. You create a great solution, price point, whatnot. All the characteristics that really matter to the target persona. And you make sure the design is top notch.
Okay.
The UX is top notch. There's no getting away from that, Kaustuv.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So I step into a conversation from that sort of a very respectful attitude towards the core value prop.
Okay.
And therefore, whenever I get revenue questions, I always discuss about the current stage of the core value prop, and I also do a deep dive into their current analytics and why things are the way they are, etc. And identify a very, very realistic, a very, no outlandish theories there, right? I sort of try to stay close to the ground, understand what really works for this business, what the end users want. In fact, at times, I even go to the extent of telling them, can we get on a call with some of your users?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So also, could you give us an example of a company that has come to you on how to increase revenue?
Right. Usually, I'm a little bit careful in such conversations because, like we discussed in the earlier questions, revenue is a direct result of the core value prop.
Yes.
Right? I like to think that is not part of my game, because how can I change the parameters of your business as a person representing a user engagement tool? I can't. Right? And that's a very good and a very safe starting point for the conversation. Usually I clarify that aspect, and I also tell them I am here to help you in stuff other than the core value prop. But if you believe that revenue can be increased through engagement, I am all for it.
Okay.
Right? So if you're having revenue woes, you're having revenue pains, maybe I am not going to really help you instantly, because that could, in my experience, it generally is indicative of something on the core value prop side. But I'm all for discussions that talk about exploring possibilities to drive extra revenue.
Okay.
Right? Like that little bit of extra revenue, that's where lots of gamification has generally helped our clients. We even think about some pretty innovative ideas on just understanding the user needs better. Right? We have examples of using polls and using surveys to understand users better, and maybe I should talk a little bit about that, because surveys are, everybody knows surveys, right? You directly ask a question and they give you an answer.
Yeah.
But a poll is a sort of a gamified version of it, right? You're just not asking directly a question, you're asking for some sort of an underlying belief or attitude. So if you go about crafting those things carefully and timing, when they show up in the app and where they show up in the app, right? You could actually collect like data that's like gold, right? Once you know what people think of some of the products or some of the themes that your app stands for, you can go in much more intelligently for your next round of campaigns.
Okay.
Right? So this is a really nice example of how I can collaborate on a project whose ultimate goal is revenue, but my part would be something like helping you to like understand your users better, especially if there's like a million of them. and you cannot really pick up the phone and talk to them, right? So innovative ways to understand their needs, to capture their preferences, to understand their beliefs, what's their mindset, that itself is going to be really useful in planning campaigns which are a little more marketing oriented, right? Which could come up with like product recommendations and service recommendations that could make sense to the end user.
Yes.
Right.
So good that you have highlighted that. Which brings me to my next question, which is, can you give us, from a customer success perspective, you would have handled a lot of creative campaigns. Could you give us a creative campaign that you have handled recently and that was like a great success and that matches with our second group of audiences as well?
Yeah, I mean, I have worked on some nice campaigns. I think one campaign that I remember particularly is it uses a very subtle aspect of gamification without making it look like a game. Okay. And this is a very important thing to understand because it doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be. The point is, it should evoke emotions. That's the whole idea, right? And one of the emotions is pride. Pride in each user takes pride. Can you make them feel proud of how they have used the app so far?
I can't think of anything. Yeah.
For example, Spotify. Spotify sort of holds a mirror to you
Right.
at the end of a year, saying, Kaustuv, this is the kind of music you heard this year, right? These are the genres that you seem to have gravitated towards. These are the artists that you seem to have liked. Similarly, Swiggy does, you are like one biryani pro, like I don't know how many kilos of biryani.
A lot.
So the point is that sometimes there is just a lot of value in what people have already done if you can take a creative approach to presenting it back to them.
Right.
So we did that with one of our clients.
Okay.
In fact, I have to actually give credit. The idea was theirs. Okay, but we executed on it like really well. I'm proud of the way we executed on that campaign.
Okay.
And what turned out as a result was that we created personalized slideshows. So each slideshow is specially designed and built for you.
Okay.
Just imagine if there are 80,000 people, as there were 80,000 slideshows. Okay. Now these kind of things you will not hear very frequently.
Yeah.
Because this is like a next level of creativity plus personalization.
Yeah.
It's actually like one-on-one personalization. It is not segmentation.
Right.
This is actually like one-on-one personalization. We play back your 1 year of journey with that app, right? Into some really catchy summary stats, sprinkling in some motivation, giving you encouragement to do things that you haven't done, right? It's like this really wholesome mix of, hey, this is what you've done, and thumbs up for that. And these are the things that your friends, your peers in the user base, they have done it.
Okay.
So I think in the next couple of months you should try doing these things. So it's like this really good mix of great job, and this is how you can make it even better and totally personalized. For me, that was a very, very satisfying campaign project to work on because it just ticks every box. Personalization, making users feel something positive.
Okay.
Sliding in those very subtle cues and hints and tips. Isn't that just a great?
It is amazing, yeah.
Great example, right?
Correct. So that brings me to my last question, which is, if you could give one final advice to all these app marketers and product managers, what would that final advice be
I would say try your damnedest best to be more of a pull player, right? Just like accept that as your default, that when you're going to make an app and when you're going to put it out in the hands of like thousands of people, make sure that it is something that you feel proud proud of. Make sure that your users have that sort of an emotional, positive response to it, which means you need to like do a lot of thinking. You need to do a lot of thinking, and it involves multiple people, right? Designers, UX and marketing and product, and it's this veritable cocktail of talent that you need actually.
Right.
So make sure you've got like the right people. Just be aware, be mindful of the fact that you need to get all these things right to be able to exert a pull and keep the door open to do something extra, right? And if you are in the second category, my sincere suggestion is take inspiration from your own users, listen to them attentively, openly, get on the phone, speak to them. You can do that nowadays, it's so simple. If you have your own analytics tool set up, you can actually like even pick people from different categories, because engagement, there is style of engagement. For example, certain people engage with certain part of the app, some others engage with another part of the app. So that's like what I call as style of engagement, right? What appeals to the people.
Correct.
Second is like the level or the frequency. Like, are you like engaging like really frequently, or with a medium frequency, or like a low frequency, right? So along these two axes, style of engagement and like level of engagement or intensity of engagement, your analytics tool can definitely help you to like segment people. Pick up a few people and just reach out to them, like give them a call, send them an email, and in my experience, people love to give feedback. All you need to do is to ask. Right. So my really strong suggestion is speak to people. They are really waiting to talk to you, and they'll be like really honest. They'll give you transparent feedback on what is working in the app, what is not working in the app, what's appealing, what's not appealing. Just get their views and make sure that resonates in the release that you're planning, like in the coming weeks, right? So if you do this, I'm sure that you build like this really strong core value prop. So I think that's my message. Like, try to graduate as soon as you can and as well as you can from the push sort of a inclination or philosophy to a pull. I'm not trying to say that you should not push at all, but I definitely am making a statement that let it be like 80% pull and 20% push.
Okay.
And I think that will probably go down well with the users, because they feel like there's a natural pull, there's a natural attraction, and you've left the window open for something extra, something dynamic, something creative, something on the fly. Right? You cannot plan for it in advance when you're designing the app. So leave that little bit of 20% of room for yourself, so that like you can do something creative and it's also something fresh and something useful and fun for the end users. So I would say just keep that in mind, like 80% pull, 20% push.
Well, that is a very interesting session, Casey. I am sure our audience have a lot to take back. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and I hope to do another session on app engagement very soon with you.